Man, I never thought my life would get this twisted. Name's Ryan, college kid, grinding away on my thesis. Been pulling all-nighters, reading, writing, rewriting, stress just piling up. But, get this, I had no clue the real drama wasn't gonna be about grades or deadlines. Nope, it was gonna be right here at home, under my own roof, so, it's a regular Friday night, right? I'm beat, like, totally wiped out after days of burning the midnight oil. I drag myself home, just wanting to crash. Place is quiet, just the soft glow from the kitchen, spilling into the hallway, casting these long shadows. Ryan, you in there? That's my stepmom, Eva, calling from the kitchen, breaking the silence. Yeah, it's me, I mumble back, voice all rough from being so tired. I shuffle into the kitchen, and there's Eva, standing at the stove, stirring something that smells amazing. My dad, George, he's at the table, buried in his newspaper, like always. You look beat, he says, peering over his glasses. I give him a tired grin, run a hand through my messed up hair. This thesis is killing me, I tell him. Eva turns around from the stove, looking all concerned. You eating right? You look pale. I nod, even though my stomach's growling like crazy. Eva gives me a soft smile. Sit down, dinner's almost ready. I thank her, but tell her, nah, I'm just gonna hit the sack, I'm dead tired. You sure? Eva asks, a little frown on her forehead. You gotta eat something. I tell her I'm good and head for the stairs. Alright, good night, they both say as I head up to my room. I hit the bed, and bam, I'm out like a light now. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I get this feeling, like someone's in my room. Half asleep, I'm trying to tell myself it's just a weird dream, but then I feel it, someone gently touching my arm. My sleepy brain's trying to figure out what's going on. I my shirt being pulled up a little, and something cold brushing against my skin. That snaps me awake, kinda, but I'm so exhausted, I can't even open my eyes or move. Then, things get real weird. A hand starts touching me, in a way that's totally not right, not for family. My body's reacting, even though my mind's screaming. What the hell is this? Is this real? Am I dreaming? I'm trying to talk, to ask what's going on, but I can't. I'm just too tired, too numb. Part of me's hoping it's just some messed up dream, but the touch, the feeling, it's too real. My heart's pounding, and, man, I'm ashamed to say, my body's responding, even though my mind's telling me it's wrong. Just when I think I can't take it anymore, when I'm about to wake up and deal with whatever's happening, it stops. I hear soft footsteps, then nothing. My heart's still racing, my mind's spinning, trying to figure out who was in my room. I want to get up and check, but I'm just too tired. I drift back into a deep, messed up sleep. Next morning, I wake up, and it's like the whole thing was some distant, hazy, freaky memory. Did it even happen, or did my tired brain just make it up? I head downstairs, stomach churning, still half asleep and confused. I walk into the kitchen, smelling fresh coffee and bacon, and there's Eva, busy at the stove. Morning, sleepyhead, she says with a warm smile. You must have needed that rest. How you feeling? I stare at her for a second, trying to see if anything's different, but she's just normal, humming and flipping pancakes, like nothing happened. I'm fine, I say slowly. Where's Dad? Oh, he had an early meeting with a client, Eva says, putting a plate of food in front of me. Eat up, you need your strength for studying. But even with her casual tone, I can tell something's off. Eva's busy in the kitchen, talking about her day, but I'm barely listening. My mind's stuck on what happened last night. Did it really happen, and if it did, was it Eva? I want to ask, but I can't bring myself to do it. Did I do something? Should I say something? I can't even think straight. I pick at my breakfast, thank Eva, and head back to my room. I sit at my desk, trying to focus on my thesis, but the memory of those touches, real or imagined, keeps creeping back into my thoughts. The next few days are a blur, trying to juggle my schoolwork and this messed up feeling in my gut. Every time I see Eva, I get this mix of shame, curiosity, and guilt, but she's acting like nothing happened. Things are normal, until the next Friday. I get home early from class, because I've got my thesis defense the next day. I'm so deep in my work, I don't even hear Eva come into my room. Ryan, she says softly, startling me. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. I brought you some snacks, you're working so hard. I turn around, heart pounding. She's standing there with a plate of cookies, smiling. Like always, but there's something different in her eyes. Or am I just imagining it? Thanks, I say, taking the plate, hands shaking. Instead of leaving, Eva sits down on the edge of my bed. How's the thesis coming? She asks softly. Okay, I answer, trying to stay calm. Just nervous about the defense tomorrow. She looks at me with sympathy. Oh, honey, you'll do great. You've worked so hard. Before I can say anything, Eva moves closer, putting her hand on my shoulder. That touch sends a jolt through me, bringing back all those memories from that night. I can't take it anymore. Eva, I say, voice trembling, that night, were you in my room? The smile drops from her face, replaced by shock, then guilt. Ryan, she whispers, voice barely audible, I don't know what to say. And in that moment, I know it wasn't a dream, it really happened. Eva was in my room that night, touching me in a way that crossed every line. We need to talk, she says, breaking the silence. I nod, her eyes filling with tears. Yeah, we do, but not now. Dad'll be home soon, and you need to focus on your defense. Can we talk later? I want to argue, to get answers now, but she's right. I can't deal with this with my whole academic future on the line. Okay, I agree reluctantly. The next day, my thesis defense is a complete mess, my mind all over the place. The morning of my thesis defense was a mix of feelings. On one hand, I was ready to show my work, on the other hand, my mind was filled with tension and anxiety, because a very uncomfortable and unresolved conversation was waiting for me at home. I couldn't even eat the breakfast Eva made. My stomach was turning, I was looking at the food and trying to act normal, but my mind was restless. Eva was faking happiness in the kitchen, as if everything was okay. But I could see the stress in her eyes, the pain she was hiding. The thesis deaf. Ants went by in a blur. I presented my research, answered the committee's questions, and defended my decisions. Somehow, I managed to push aside the personal chaos in my life and focus on the task at hand. By some miracle, I came out of it feeling accomplished. Excellent work, Ryan, my advisor said with a warm smile. You should be proud of yourself. I should have been ecstatic, but instead, a deep sense of foreboding filled me. As I made my way home, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that everything was about to change. When I entered the house, Eva was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of steaming coffee, her face a mask of anxiety and remorse. She looked up when I walked in, her expression softening into one of concern. How did it go? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Fine, I said, my voice tight, reluctant to engage in any conversation. That's wonderful, Ryan, she replied, her tone a mixture of relief and guilt. I knew you would do well. Can we talk now? I couldn't hold it in any longer. The pretense of normalcy was wearing thin, and I couldn't ignore the heaviness in my chest. We need to talk about what happened, I said, my voice firm. Eva nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping. You're right. Please, sit down. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, wrapping my hands around the warm mug of coffee she had made for me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. It was as if both of us were waiting for the other to break the silence, to say the words that had been hanging in the air for days. Finally, I spoke, unable to hold back any longer. Why did you come into my room that night? I asked, my voice shaky despite my attempt to sound strong. Eva closed her eyes for a moment, collecting herself. When she opened them again, her gaze met mine, filled with regret and sorrow. I don't have a good answer, Ryan, she said, her voice trembling. I've been asking myself that same question over and over, but I can't deny what happened. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug nervously. The truth is, I've been struggling for a while now. Your father is a good man, but he's been so distant lately, always working, always preoccupied. I've been feeling lonely, unappreciated, desperate even. That night, I had too much wine, and my emotions were all over the place. I thought maybe we could talk, but when I got to your room, you were already asleep, and then, well, I don't know what came over me. She stopped for a moment, taking a shaky breath. You looked so calm, so peaceful, and before I knew it, I was doing things I should never have done. I sat there, unable to fully comprehend her words. Part of me wanted to lash out, to accuse her of betraying my trust. But another part of me saw the pain in her eyes, the regret that seemed to consume her. It was a complicated feeling, anger mixed with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Ryan, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. What I did was unacceptable. I betrayed your trust, and if you want me to leave, I will. I'll understand. The thought of her leaving, of our family falling apart, hit me like a ton of bricks. Despite everything that had happened, despite the pain and confusion swirling inside me, I realized that I didn't want her to leave. I said slowly, my voice unsteady. I don't know how to move forward. How can I trust you after all of this? Eva looked at me, her face a mixture of hope and fear. I don't know either, she admitted softly. But I want to try, Ryan. If you're willing, I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. We talked for hours, sorting through our emotions and opening up about our feelings. Eva shared more about her loneliness and how her marriage had left her feeling neglected, while I opened up about my confusion and the strange mix of emotions her actions had stirred in me. As we spoke, I began to understand her better, not in the sense of excusing what happened, but in the sense of seeing her as a person, not just a stepmother. What will we tell Dad? I asked as the conversation began to wind down. Eva sighed heavily, her face filled with sorrow. I don't know. Part of me believes he deserves to know the truth, but another part is afraid of what it would mean for our family. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the decision on my shoulders. The secret between us had become a heavy burden, and I understood Eva's hesitation. Maybe, I said after a pause, we don't need to tell him everything, but we should talk to him about the bigger issues. Your feelings of neglect, the distance between you two, that might be enough. Eva looked at me with cautious hope in her eyes. You think that will help? I don't know, I replied honestly. Maybe it will, at least a little. It might prevent something like this from happening again. We agreed to take things one day at a time. Eva would work on improving communication with George, and I would focus on completing my college work. We both promised to be more open, to talk through our feelings and any issues that arose. As Eva stood up to start preparing dinner, she paused and looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and lingering guilt. Thank you, Ryan, for listening, she said. I don't hate you, I said truthfully. I'm still processing everything, but I don't hate you. She nodded, a faint smile on her face, before turning to the stove to continue cooking that night. As I lay in bed, my mind replayed our conversation. I felt a strange mix of emotional relief, having cleared the air, and lingering confusion about my own feelings. I also couldn't shake the sense of guilt for agreeing to keep part of what happened a secret. The next few weeks were filled with an uneasy tension. Eva and I were hyper-aware of each other, carefully keeping a respectful distance, unsure of how to act. We both threw ourselves into our respective routines, me focusing on schoolwork and Eva making efforts to reconnect with George. But the weight of the secret still loomed over us. One day, I returned home early from class to find Eva alone in the house. She was curled up on the couch with a book, looking startled when I walked in. I didn't expect you to be home so early, she said, her voice filled with surprise. The professor canceled class, I explained, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Where's Dad? I asked. Working late again, Eva replied, her voice tinged with frustration. I could see how tired she was, how much she missed him. Without thinking, I moved to sit beside her on the couch. Are things not going well? I asked gently, trying to reach out. Eva gave me a sad smile. I'm trying, Ryan, I really am. But sometimes I wonder if it's enough, if we've gone too far. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for her. She was genuinely trying to make things work, but it was clear that her relationship with George was strained. I'm sorry, I said, reaching out to comfort her. When my hand touched hers, I felt a jolt of electricity, an intensity that scared me. Eva must have felt it too, because she quickly pulled her hand away. I should start dinner, she said, her voice trembling, as she hurried to the kitchen. I sat there, my heart racing. What was that? Why did I react that way to a simple touch? I retreated to my room, my thoughts in turmoil. I had thought we were moving on from everything, that we could put that night behind us, but clearly, unresolved feelings were still simmering beneath the surface. That night, I lay awake for hours, grappling with my conscience. I knew my feelings were wrong. Eva was my stepmother, my father's wife, but I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward her, the way my body responded to her presence. I thought about Dad and how oblivious he was to everything happening right under his nose. I thought about Eva, trapped in a marriage that was falling apart, and I thought about myself, caught in the middle of it all, confused and unprepared. As dawn broke, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, walking on eggshells in my own home. I needed to get away, to clear my head. I began packing a bag, thinking that some time away from all of this might help me sort things out. I could stay with a friend and focus on finishing my last few classes. As I zipped up my backpack, I heard movement in the hallway. Eva was up, probably starting her morning routine. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the difficult conversation that was ahead. I had to tell her I was leaving, and I had to explain why. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. With one last look around my room, I opened the door, ready to face whatever came next. Little did I know, the most difficult part of this ordeal was still ahead. As I stepped into the hallway, backpack slung over my shoulder, I nearly collided with Eva. She was on her way to the kitchen, still in her robe, her hair tousled from sleep. When she saw me, her eyes widened as she took in my packed bag and the determined look on my face. "Ryan," she asked, her voice tight with concern, "what's going on?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "I think it's best if I stay with a friend for a while." Eva's face fell, a mix of understanding and sadness washing over her. "Ryan," she said softly, "is this because of yesterday? Because of us?" I nodded, though I couldn't meet her gaze. "It's not just yesterday. It's everything. I can't keep pretending everything is normal when it isn't, and I need some space to figure things out." She reached out as though to touch my arm, but then her hand fell limply to her side. "I understand," she said quietly, "but can we talk about this first? Dad will be devastated if you leave without any explanation." In my rush to leave, I hadn't considered how this would affect Dad. The weight of it all suddenly felt unbearable. We moved to the living room, sitting on the couch, the same couch where we had shared so many family moments. "I don't want to hurt him," I said, my voice heavy with guilt. "But I don't know how to explain this to him." Eva nodded, her eyes filled with sympathy. "We'll figure it out," she said, placing a reassuring hand on my knee. "We'll talk to him together, explain that you need some time away. We don't have to tell him everything, just that you need space to focus on your studies and clear your head." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Okay," I said, "but what about us? How do we move forward from this?" Eva sighed, her gaze dropping to her lap. "I don't know, Ryan. I wish I had all the answers, but I don't. All I know is that I want to make things right. I want to rebuild your trust, even if it takes time." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. "I want to trust you, Eva," I said finally, "but I need to see that things can change, that we can find a way to be a family again." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with determination. "We will," she said, her voice firm. "We'll start by being honest with each other, by talking about our feelings and working through them together. And we'll find a way to reconnect with your father, to bring him back into our lives." I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst the confusion and uncertainty. "Okay," I said, "I'll stay. But we need to start making changes, and we need to start now." Eva smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. "I agree," she said. "We'll start today." We spent the rest of the morning talking, planning how we would approach Dad, how we would start rebuilding our family. We decided that Eva would take the lead, talking to him about her feelings of neglect and the distance that had grown between them. I would be there to support her, to offer my perspective and to help him understand what we were going through. By the time Dad came home from work, we had a plan in place. We sat him down in the living room, the three of us, and Eva began to speak. She talked about her loneliness, about feeling like she was losing him, about needing him to be present in their marriage. Dad listened, his face edged with concern and confusion. He had no idea how much she was hurting, how much their relationship had deteriorated. When she finished, he reached out and took her hand, his eyes filled with remorse. "I'm so sorry, Eva," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea. I've been so caught up in work, I haven't been paying attention to what really matters." He turned to me, his gaze filled with apology. "And Ryan, I'm sorry for not being there for you. You too. I've been so distracted, I haven't noticed how much you've been struggling." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "It's okay, Dad," I said, "we'll figure it out. We just need to start talking, start being honest with each other." We spent the rest of the evening talking, sharing our feelings, our fears, our hopes. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also cathartic, a release of all the pent-up emotions that had been festering for so long. By the time we went to bed, we were all exhausted, but we also felt a sense of relief, a sense that we had finally turned a corner. The next few weeks were a period of adjustment, a time of rebuilding and healing. Eva and Dad started going on regular date nights, making an effort to reconnect and rediscover their love for each other. I spent more time with Dad, talking about my studies, my friends, my life. We even started playing basketball together on weekends, something we hadn't done in years. Eva and I also found a way to navigate our complicated relationship. We talked openly about what had happened, about the boundaries we needed to set, about the trust we needed to rebuild. It wasn't always easy, but we were both committed to making it work. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room, reading a book, Eva came and sat beside me. "Ryan," she said, her voice soft, "I want to thank you. For everything. For being honest, for being understanding, for giving us a chance to fix things." I smiled at her, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "You're welcome, Eva," I said. "We're a family, and families stick together, even when things get tough." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "We do," she said, "and I'm so grateful for that." We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, then Eva stood up. "I'm going to make some tea," she said. "Do you want some?" "Sure," I said, "that sounds great." As she walked towards the kitchen, I felt a sense of peace, a sense that we had finally found our way back to each other. We still had a long way to go, but we were on the right track. We were a family, and we were going to make it through this, together. A few weeks later, I was sitting in my room, working on my thesis, when I heard a knock on the door. "Come in," I said, and Eva entered, carrying a tray with 2 mugs of tea. "I thought you might like some company," she said, placing the tray on my desk. "Thanks," I said, smiling at her. "I could use a break." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping our tea, before Eva spoke again. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice hesitant, "about what you said, about needing to see changes." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I think we need to talk about what happened," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Really talk about it, not just brush it under the rug." I took a deep breath, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. "Okay," I said, "but I don't want to rehash everything. It was a mistake, and we've both moved on." Eva shook her head. "It wasn't just a mistake, Ryan," she said, her voice firm. "It was a violation of trust. And it's affected our relationship in ways we haven't even acknowledged." I looked at her, surprised by her candor. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean," she said, "that we've been pretending like everything is fine, but it's not. We're both still carrying the weight of what happened, and until we address it, we can't truly move forward." I sighed, realizing she was right. We had been avoiding the elephant in the room, pretending that time and distance would heal the wounds, but they hadn't. "Okay," I said, "let's talk about it. But I don't know where to start." Eva reached out and took my hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "We'll start with honesty," she said. "We'll talk about how we felt, what we were thinking, and what we need from each other to rebuild our trust." We talked for hours that night, delving into the depths of our emotions, our fears, our regrets. Eva apologized for her actions, for betraying my trust, for making me feel uncomfortable in my own home. I told her about the confusion, the anger, the sense of betrayal I had felt, but also about the empathy and understanding that had grown within me. We talked about the boundaries we needed to set, the importance of respecting each other's space, the need for open and honest communication. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also liberating, a release of the pent-up emotions that had been festering for months. By the time we finished, we both felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. The next day, I woke up feeling refreshed, as if a new chapter had begun. I went downstairs to find Eva and Dad in the kitchen, laughing and talking as they prepared breakfast. The sight of them together, happy and relaxed, filled me with a sense of peace. We had come a long way, but we had finally found our way back to each other. We were a family, and we were going to make it through this, together. A few months later, I graduated from college, my thesis successfully defended, my future bright with possibilities. Eva and Dad were there, beaming with pride, as I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. We celebrated that night, a small, intimate dinner at our favorite restaurant, just the three of us. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I felt a surge of gratitude for the people in my life, for the love and support that had carried me through the challenges, for the second chance we had given each other. We had faced a crisis, a betrayal of trust, but we had emerged stronger, more united, more loving. We had learned the importance of honesty, communication, and forgiveness. We had learned that family is not just about blood, but about love, commitment, and the willingness to work through the tough times. As I looked at Eva and Dad, I knew that we would face more challenges in the future, but I also knew that we would face them together, as a family. As the years passed, our bond grew stronger, our love deeper, our family more resilient. We faced new challenges, new obstacles, but we faced them together, as a united front. We had learned from our past mistakes, from our moments of weakness, from our times of doubt. We had learned that love is not just a feeling, but a choice, a commitment, a promise. We had learned that family is not just about shared blood, but about shared experiences, shared memories, shared love. We had learned that forgiveness is not just about forgetting, but about healing, about growing, about moving forward. We had learned that second chances are not just about redemption, but about transformation, about becoming better versions of ourselves. We had learned that life is not just about the destination, but about the journey, about the moments, about the people we share them with. And we had learned that love, true love, is not just about happily ever after, but about happily ever now, about cherishing each moment, about loving each other, unconditionally, always.